So in this module, we are going to be focusing on communication. Now, later on in another module, we're going to be talking about communication when you're standing up, particularly around body language. But in this module, we're going to just spend a little bit of time exploring what communication is and how we can use it to make sure that our message gets understood and received with that clarity that we're all needing whenever we do a presentation. The golden rule with any presentation is to remember that it's not just what you say, it's also how you say it. There's a massive difference between saying, look, I've got some really sad news today versus I've got some really sad news today. You'll notice that the words are exactly the same, but the emphasis, the tonality, the energy of the voice really changes the whole meaning. Now, this is particularly important when we are communicating in English. Putting the right energy into the right word at the right time can really be the difference that makes the difference when we are presenting. So let's take a look at what we mean when we talk about communication. So obviously the key thing about communication is to recognize we have that communication with ourselves. That's all wrapped around a previous module when we explore those thoughts and beliefs that we have. But for this module, we're going to be talking more overtly how we communicate with other people and the difference between what we say and potentially what people hear. So let's focus very quickly on the words. Now, I will assume that when you're doing a presentation that you already know and have some level of knowledge about the topic that you are presenting on. That said, it's also too important to tailor the words to the needs of the audience. If you are doing a presentation to people who are experts, you might want to use deeper level language, deeper level jargon. But if you are giving a presentation to people at a more higher level, you want to simplify your language. Now, at this point, I also want to remind you, if you are watching this and you are a non-native English speaker, and you have that belief, oh, my English isn't good enough, the great thing about the English language is you can say the words even if it's in the wrong order, and people can still understand you. That requires you to continue to build the belief that at the moment your English is good enough, and like all of us, myself included, it can get better. So when we think about the actual words, it's things like, what data are you going to be talking about? What facts are you going to be including in your presentation? Would there be any statistics? And where is the data from those statistics coming from? What's the sample size? Who did it? How long ago was this piece of research completed? You can also include stories, and you'll have noticed I include a number of stories through this online virtual program. Stories are a great way of pulling people together and really getting to understand the story that you're talking about. Particularly useful when you want people to imagine a different future from current state. You might want to include the information, and all of this is wrapped around evidence. So the words are really, really important. The one thing I absolutely would say is fewer and better words is going to be, on balance, more useful than long, complicated words. Now, of course, if you are doing a lecture on a PhD course, then you might want to be using some deep level technical words. But that said, most business presentations, sometimes if you overcomplicate the language, guess what? The audience is sitting there going, I don't understand. A few years ago, I was co-facilitating a program with another professional coach with a large UK-based but global company. And one of the bits of feedback when I was watching my co-facilitator, I was used to watch this person and go, oh, I really wish I could do what they do. They come up with these long words, and they're very, very talented at being able to articulate their message using long, complicated sentences. And interestingly, the feedback that I got was actually that the delegates in that classroom, because none of them spoke English as their first language, didn't always follow everything that they said. So for me, the key takeaway is focus on your strengths. Yes, we can be inspired by other people, but focus on what you do and notice that it is always good enough with an opportunity to improve. And the key thing to remember about this, I mean, I do this as a professional speaker for 25 plus years now. I still look at other speakers and I think, oh, I wish I could borrow what they do, or I wish I could borrow what they say. But I'd also say, when you watch me present, even if it's on video, don't try to copy me. If you try to copy me, at best, you are going to come second, because there is no one on this planet as good as being me as I am. But interestingly, there's also no one on this planet that is as good as being you as you are. So strive to be the best you can be, whilst also noticing some of the tools and techniques that other speakers give that you think, actually, that could fit my style. So always be the best you can be. So that's us taking a look at the actual words. As I mentioned, we'll do body language a little bit later. Now let's focus on the voice itself. This, of course, accounts for 38% of communication, and it's an incredibly powerful way to get people to listen to key words that you want people to actually hear. So let's take a look at 7 key things that we have to consider when it comes to the voice. So the first one is the volume, then we talk about tonality, then we'll talk about the speed that people talk, and then how do we emphasize some of the key words that we really want people to listen to in any given sentence. What about emotion? If we're going to put that emotion into something, how can we use our voice on purpose? We'll also explore the importance of pausing, allowing the audience to catch up with what you're saying, and also it can help you appear very, very confident when you use those pauses correctly. And of course, beware of the filler words, the ums and the ers that we can often have in our presentations. So let's start with the volume. Now, the volume is really, really important. We can be incredibly passionate with our message, but we don't have to shout. In fact, an argument that was once put forward is, if I have to raise my voice, maybe my message isn't good enough. So, of course, if you're speaking on stage, at some point you might want to raise it up to an 8, a 9, or a 10. But the problem is, if you keep it there, the audience begin to tune out and it just feels like they're shouted at. And of course, if I only speak from a 1, of course, people at the back of the room may not be able to hear me. So the key is to make sure that we keep it within the 5, 6, 7 range, but we also modulate it so that the audience will notice that fluctuation and it keeps your voice interesting. Too low, nobody can hear you. Too high, and it's like people are just being shouted at, and they stop listening. So what about the speed of our voice? The speed of our voice, we all have a natural speed to our voice. The one thing that I have noticed with people who are not confident when they are presenting is they will speak quicker. So what that means is we speak quicker and we hope we can get through all of the presentation, get through all of the slides, we can get off stage, we can go back and relax and run away from the training room. My guess is you may not have followed every single word that I've just said. And all of that is because I said what I said too quickly. And this is why the words are important. But if you say them too quickly, people aren't going to follow everything you just said.